Did you know that if money is not what you want it to be in this life and you feel like you're doing all the right things, maybe you've taken some courses, you're saving money, you're doing your affirmations, you're doing your visualizations, you're getting the education, all that it might be. Did you know that you could be impacted by energies that aren't from this lifetime? So what are energies that aren't from this lifetime? What I mean by that are energies that might come from your past lives or your ancestors. Now, when you hear that, it's easy to think, oh my gosh, well, if I'm being impacted and money can't be what I'd like it to be in my life because of past lives and ancestors, none of which is in my current timeline, what the heck am I supposed to do about that? So let's talk about this for a few minutes in this video. So we've had previous lives, and our experiences in our past lives make up who we are today. So we've had a lot of great things happen in the past. We've had challenging things happen in the past. And together, those have woven together to make us who we are. Now, our ancestors in our genetic lineage and soul family lineage have made decisions also in the past. And through their actions and through their explicit teachings, through their subconscious teachings, they've passed those along. Those also come into who we play, and they're part of this beautiful tapestry of who we are. So when we're seeking a different experience with money, you may have plenty of it and you'd like to have more. Maybe you'd like to have a great retirement or have enough to create generational wealth. Maybe you don't have enough and you can't quite figure out how to get out of low poverty or not enough. Or a very common one is just enough, as if you have a glass ceiling over your head and you can't get past that barrier of just enough to get into a place where you feel like you're thriving. One of the things to do is open up to, number one, it's not your fault. So you might not be broken or cursed about money. We're not going to talk about that here. But what we want to do is have access and a peek behind the curtain, if you will, about what might be in your energetic field that didn't happen or is not part of this lifetime, but originated in some other time and place. So how do we do that? Well, because I work with the Akashic Records so passionately, the Akashic Records is that perfect access point to get a view at any of the energies that may have originated in your past lives or in your ancestral lineage relative to money and the beliefs and the understandings around that, in ways to understand who you are today. So let's just take past lives for example. Now, I've done thousands and thousands of readings for people in the Akashic Records, and money comes up a lot because money's a really powerful, potent, distorted energy in our collective right now. And so there are a lot of people really working to get into right relationship with it. So what are the things that may have happened in your past lives that may be impacting you? Of course, everyone's unique, but here are some of the main things that I've seen come up in my own work in the Akashic Records, as well as with many of my clients. One of the first biggest things that I've seen the most are lifetimes where we've taken vows of poverty. We might have been in a religious order or a social group where oftentimes, especially if it was in a religious order, our poverty was elevated because it was about cultivating a deeper relationship with the divine. And so we were willing to make those vows of poverty because we saw it as our connection to a greater connection with God, source, divinity, or our own spiritual journey. So really important. Those energies could still be active in our lives now, even if we're not trying to live that same kind of potentially cloistered spiritual life. Now, another thing that I've seen a lot in the records, and this especially is true with people who are healers, is that in the past you've been that starving healer. You've been sidelined out of your social groups, out of your society, and as a healer, it wasn't recognized as a legitimate profession. So often you were a healer and just barely getting by. You may have been helping other people thrive, but there wasn't that respect for who you are, so you have embedded within you that starving healer kind of energetic pattern. I've also worked with people a lot who had great spiritual gifts, and in past lives they might have been brought into training to be an oracle of one sort or another. They have all different types of names, but where you were trained, and then through your training you were then brought to be an important person in, say, a king's household or a statesman's household, and you were there as somebody who was their advisor. So you had a very important role. You were very well cared for. You might have lived in a lot of opulence, and yet you were disconnected from the money. You weren't having to create the income coming in. It came in as a natural result. I've seen this come up a lot in the records with a lot of light workers, because a lot of us have, as light workers who might have had that benefactor energy, that we're working to integrate having our spiritual gifts without a benefactor, but having our spiritual gifts while living in the world. And so it's a newer thing for us. Those are just a couple of examples. I could go on, but I'm sure you get the feeling and the sense of that if you've had those experiences in past lives, they become part of your energetic makeup now. Let's talk about your ancestors now briefly for a moment. Your ancestors, and the ancestors could be as recent as your parents, your grandparents, but it could go back many, many generations around the idea of money. Now, some of your ancestors may go far enough back that money wasn't a thing, and they may have not prioritized money because they may not have had much of it, but they may have been more in a barter economy. And in a barter economy, when not much is learned around money, then when you get into the place of having money, it's not very well understood. There are also times when we go back to, like, just look at in the early 1900s when there was the Great Depression. People may have had money and lost it suddenly, and it really changed the course of a lot of people's lives. That was very dramatic and traumatic, and really set some mindsets into place. Some of it's about being very, very frugal. Some of it is about really hoarding things so you always have more than enough, so you're not caught off guard. And that kind of it all could go away kind of energy could be present also. There's also beliefs in ancestral families, like you have to work hard to get ahead, and there's this energy of hard work and barely getting by. And the last one I'll talk about that I've seen a lot of is this idea of just enough. It's a glass ceiling we have over our head. We have just enough to get by. And just enough is okay. You have housing, you're never gonna be hungry, but just enough means there's not a lot of thriving there. And that can come from a history of a family not having more than just enough. But you're ready to break through that glass ceiling to something more. So those are just a few of the patterns that that I want to share today. But the reality is, the Akashic Records can open us up to what those patterns are that are active, and give us an opportunity to not just academically understand them, but energetically transform them to get you moving in the direction that you would like to experience. Many of us are change makers and pattern breakers in terms of our past lives and also our ancestral lineage. We are here to break through some of these patterns and create new paradigms. That's part of what we're doing in this awakening. So I'm going to share more in another video. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd love to hear about what resonated with you. What part of this kind of resonated like, ooh, I think that's part of my history. You don't need to be burdened by these past life energies anymore or the ancestral patterns. We can use the Akashic Records to upend these patterns and put you in a space where you feel free to choose a new experience.